It's intriguing.
And then he tells me, you died twice on the table. Nasty blood hit your brain. You died.
It's incredible.
I was in this, it's an endless, misty white space. The very first thing I noticed was I had no pain.
It's engaging.
Then I was in this incredibly brightly lit space, and God was there. And there were some other relatives there that had passed on before that knew me.
It's inspiring.
Has your near-death experience changed your view?
I'm a whole lot more softer and caring towards other people than I was before.
You're now listening to Real Spiritual Talk Radio. Here's your host, Lamont Gates.
Welcome back to another edition of Real Spiritual Talk Radio. I am your host, Lamont Gates, once again bringing you the world of faith, metaphysicality, and spirituality. Today, my guest had an unforgettable, distressing experience during her NDE. Joining me, ladies and gentlemen, today is near-death experiencer Nene. Nene, welcome to Real Spiritual Talk Radio.
Thank you.
Very glad to have you on today. So I want to start this conversation off first and foremost, as I typically do, with the religious question. Nene, were there any religious belief systems you were raised with or that you held prior to having your near-death experience?
Baptist. I was raised Baptist, and then I just eventually moved to a non-denominational Christian church before then.
Were you religiously observant? Were you strict in that? Were you moderate?
Well, I was when I was younger, but as I got older, I really kind of fell out of church, and I wasn't as tied into it as I was when I was younger.
So it's safer to say that you were at some point a cultural Christian rather than a strictly observant one as you got older.
Yeah.
Okay, well, with that said, why don't we just move into your near-death experience? First and foremost, though, why don't you talk to us about what it was that actually triggered the near-death experience to occur?
Well, I was trying to commit suicide because something the boyfriend had did, and I was young at the time, so I just felt like that would have been a solution for me to leave the world. So I did end up taking some opioids and alcohol at the same time.
So, in other words, you weren't really clinically depressed, so to speak. This was just a situation that occurred in your life at the hands of someone you were dating at the time.
Yeah, I would say I was depressed. I was still going on with like mental things I was still trying to deal with from childhood and growing up. I wasn't as depressed, but I was a little depressed.
So you had some trauma in your childhood that escalated at the point of dating or being with this particular individual that caused you to finally attempt a suicide.
Yeah, it was just like too much bad stuff happening, and then that topped it off. And I took the pills and drank the alcohol.
Now talk to us about what it was that you felt immediately after ingesting this alcohol and the opioids.
It felt like I was going to sleep at first, and I was just laying in the bed. But then I just started screaming, and it felt like I was falling.
Okay.
It was like I walked to an edge of a cliff in a dark place, and I just started falling. And my grandma told me that she told me that she thought I went to hell because of me screaming like that. She said that I was screaming like I was on fire. And she just told me that she thinks I went to hell.
So there was someone standing outside of you while you were having this experience, and you were very vocal, obviously. You said you were screaming. So while this was taking place, did you know where you were? Were you conscious, or did you think you were unconscious? What was it that you visually saw?
I went unconscious. As I was laying in the bed, it was like I fell asleep, but I couldn't wake up anymore. It was like I couldn't wake myself up and I couldn't do anything and I couldn't move. It was like I was just sitting there. So after I stopped screaming, I saw myself laying there. It was like I was standing outside my body and I just saw myself laying there on the bed. And then I saw the EMTs rushing and they started putting the electrocution thing on the chest, like pumping the chest up because they were trying to make me back conscious, but I wouldn't come back conscious.
So it sounds like you were having what they commonly describe as an out-of-body experience. So take us through this chronologically if you can. So you first ingested these drugs, then you felt like you were in a place of darkness and that you were falling. Did you visually see anything as you were falling or in this particular dark place?
I saw myself walking to the edge of a cliff and then I just started falling downwards.
And as you were falling downwards, was there any communication? Were you trying to communicate anything?
No. After I stopped screaming, they told me I was like in a smaller coma. So I didn't even come to until weeks later when I actually woke up.
So I just want to focus on this falling thing. How did the falling situation end up with you seeing yourself outside of your body?
It was like as soon as I fell, everything went black. And then next thing I know, I'm just standing there looking at EMTs pumping my chest up. It was like I kind of just went back to the situation of me falling and I actually fell into like black water. It was like I couldn't see the EMTs anymore and I didn't know what they were doing and I thought I had died. I literally thought I died. And I just remember I was falling and then I hit black water.
Describe to us what it was that occurred after you hit this water, if to the best of your recollection.
So there was a figure. It was like a skeleton figure with a black cloak on with a long wooden triangular sword. It was like a long wooden stick with a triangular sword on the end. I guess they call them like Grim Reapers or something. So I turned around after I hit the water and I saw it right there. And it just kept trying to drown me in the water over and over again. But I fought back. I fought the hardest I could fight. And then finally it went under the water and it didn't come back up and try to drown me anymore. So then I felt like I was in hell or something. And I just started freaking out. It was like I was trying to get out the water, but I couldn't get out the water because it was never ending. And I just sat there and I screamed and I was like, I'm baptized. I'm not supposed to be here. And then I looked over and I saw a bank and I saw a black figure with black wings and red eyes. And they flew over and picked me up out the black water and took me upwards. And when I looked into his eyes, I'm like, the eyes are red. What's going on? I got scared and I just called Jesus. I called his name one time. I didn't get to the end of it. And I was already appearing in a white light tunnel in front of him.
So you were lifted out by this entity. You were clearly afraid because of the vision of the red eyes that it had, and you called out to Jesus, as you said, and all of a sudden you were in a white light tunnel. Were you moving at a particular speed in this tunnel?
As soon as I got to the tunnel, everything got like real calm and warm, and I felt comforted. I felt like I got wrapped up in a warm blanket, and I was just moving real slow and walking forward. And then I finally saw dark curly hair, white robe, sandals, and I saw Jesus, and I knew that was him. I knew it because I was like white robe, sandals, and I just figured that was him. I figured he had came and saved me. And I think I had saw my grandmother that passed because I kept hearing her telling me to wake up and asking me why did I do this. And I saw her figure, but then it was like she disappeared, and then Jesus came back in front of me. And I was trying to ask him what happened. And then he just gave me a hug and he told me to go back home and take care of my kids. So after that, it was like I didn't want to leave because I felt real, real safe. Like it just felt really beautiful. It was like serene. I don't know if that was heaven or if that was just like a pathway to heaven, but it definitely felt like heaven.
Could you see your surroundings? Was there a particular landscape, or were you
No,
still inside of this tunnel?
yeah, I was still in the tunnel. Like I saw a gate right before I saw Jesus. I saw a gate. I do remember a gate, but after that, everything in the background was blurry because it was like really, really white and like bright.
Now, you said that this entity stood in front of you and you believe it was Jesus. You said you know it, or you believe that it was Jesus mainly because of the apparel that he was wearing, the curly hair, the sandals, the white gown, so to speak. Did this entity ever communicate to you who they were, or did you ever ask who they were?
No, no, because I felt like I knew who they were already. I just felt like he heard me calling him and answered my call.
And what could you tell us about time? Do you believe that time existed where you were, or time was only an earthly thing?
Time was really weird for me. So it felt like things were going fast as I was falling into the black water and everything. But as soon as I got in the tunnel, things slowed down. It felt like it kind of felt like I was there for a long time. But I really wasn't there for a long time. So after I got a hug from Jesus and he told me to go back home and take care of the kids, I just appeared in front of my body in the hospital. So I had figured they took me to the hospital, and I guess I was sitting there having another outer body experience. I could see my mom shaking me, trying to wake me up. And then I saw the doctors and nurses still electrocuting my chest, trying to get me out of unconsciousness and out the small coma. So right after that, they were working on me for a while. And I finally just woke back up and back inside my body. And I opened my eyes a little bit, but then I went back out. I went into a deep sleep for weeks. And I didn't wake up till the next year. And they told me what happened when I woke up. They were like, your blood alcohol content was almost 300. You almost died, and we thought we lost you. And they asked me, did I know what day and year it was? And I told them no. And when I woke up, it was already past New Year's. So I was in the hospital for a couple of weeks, but to me, it felt like I was in there for a day. So it
Yes.
was like time changed over and over. Time just kept changing.
Yes, that is an absolutely long time to be in a hospital setting, especially, typically when people go in, they're going in for maybe a day or maybe a week. But to be in there for a year, I can't imagine how confusing it must have been once you woke back up from this, in addition to having this odd experience, right? Did you tell anyone about this near-death experience? Did you know about near-death experiences after you woke up from this?
No. I thought that I considered myself as a freak, and I didn't want to talk to anybody about that because I felt like people were going to pick on me or just tell me I was crazy. So I kept it to myself until I got to a ministry. It was a lot of nice people. They helped women with their kids, and the owner just sat down and talked to me one day, and I just came out my mouth and told her what happened. So she's like the only person that I've ever told about that.
And how
And
did
then when
she take this particular information?
she just told me that there's something special about me. That's all she said.
Many near-death experiencers talk about having what we describe as after effects after coming back from a near-death experience. For example, these after effects can look like having a lack of fear of death when originally a person may have been very afraid to die. Sometimes their empathy levels are much more higher. They may have a bout of precognition. They may have premonitions. They may come back totally different, wanting to change their careers from something that's making a lot of money, for example, to something that's more of a counseling or a helping profession need. Did you come back with anything remotely close to these after having your near-death experience?
I would say, well, first of all, I was very confused. I was confused for a long time, and it just kind of mentally drained me out. So I wasn't mentally there, and I was terrified to die because I felt like I was going to end up going back to the same dark place. Like to this day, I do have vivid dreams, and sometimes they come true. Like I could have a dream of something that's supposed to happen, and then I'm actually in the same scenery and going through deja vu. I had a lot of deja vu.
And you didn't have these deja vu dreams prior to your near-death experience?
No.
By the way, how old were you when you had this near-death experience?
I think I was 20, either 20 or 19.
Okay, so you were coming out of your teenage years as you were having this near-death experience. It sounds like what you had actually, what can be described as a hybrid experience. And what that is a lot of times when people go into a near-death experience during clinical death, they may have a very pleasant experience, and then all of a sudden it may change into a dark or distressing one. Or it may be the opposite, which is what you had. It may be a dark or distressing near-death experience. And then very often, as you did, they may call out for God or call out for a higher power. And then the near-death experience will then change over to a pleasant or peaceful one. Since you've had your near-death experience and since you've had these dreams, have you come familiar with near-death experiences? Did you learn that what you had a name for it, in other words?
No, I didn't find out until years later what a near-death experience was. And when I found out that other people had them, I didn't feel like a freak anymore. And I felt more comfortable.
Right, exactly. Because the key to not feeling so odd and out of place is learning that these experiences have happened to other people. And to be exact, it's happened to millions of people across 5 different continents. So you're certainly not the only one. Concerning religion, I noticed you said something very interesting during your near-death experience, and we opened up with the topic of religion. And I know you said you went from Baptist to non-denominational, and ultimately you grew into just a cultural Christian. I noticed in your near-death experience, though, you said, I'm baptized. I'm not supposed to be here. And you called out for Jesus. After your near-death experience, what does religion look like to you now? Are you still a part of a non-denominational Christian movement? Are you Baptist again? What does that look like to you?
Well, when I got in a Christian church, I did go and get baptized again after my near-death experience because I was like terrified. But after that, I stayed close in the church and I visited different churches. I wasn't just going to a Christian church, because I wanted to find out what religion I was supposed to be in anyway. So I was visiting different churches like Pentecostal, Baptist, different Christian churches and stuff like that. And half of my family is Buddhist. So I kind of wanted to go to the Buddhist temples too. But I've never sat and found what religion that I really want to be in or what religion I think is right. But so I kind of just settled with that I love Jesus and God with all my heart and that I need to focus on building a relationship with them. And then at the same time, I started studying Buddhist mantras because those helped me clear my mind. And there was a lot of meditation for me. But I never to this day said that I've found out my religion and this is what I'm going to be. And in fact, I started a ministry when COVID started, an online ministry, and it was supposed to be Christians, Muslims, and all other religions together. and it grew to about almost 2,000 people. And it was a positive page. It was like nobody was judged, and you didn't have to be in this or that religion. It was like everybody came together. So that's what made me happy about it.
So it sounds like you came back with a more universal idea of God, where religion really doesn't define you. It's it's relational, rather, how we're treating one another.
Yeah, and I feel like when Adam and Eve were here, they didn't have a religion. They just had a relationship with God.
Another question I want to ask is, very often I ask this question for people who have distressing near-death experiences, and that is, why do you believe you had a distressing near-death experience before you crossed over into the light, the enlightened tunnel? If you could, just take a stab at it.
I think it's because I disconnected from God and I was disrespectful to God. And I was just living in wild days. I wasn't focused on being good. I was just like at the bad girl stage. And I just felt like I wasn't there with God.
I had a very prominent researcher and near-death experiencer on my show by the name of PMH Atwater, and we had a discussion about what we call hellish near-death experiences or distressing near-death experiences. And one of the things she said, and I agree with her wholeheartedly, is that whether we have a positive near-death experience or a hellish one, at the end of the day, ultimately, she believes that they have these experiences because they're being taught some sort of lesson. There's some sort of lesson to gain out of it. I notice also very often, not all the time, but there are several suicide attempt near-death experiences where the experiencer will have a distressing near-death experience. They may find themselves in a dark place as you were and walking around with other people who are just sad and just feel out of place. But it's like an eternity that these people are walking around like this. But they get to come back, or they get to have a hybrid near-death experience where it turns into a heavenly one like yours. And very often the lesson they come back with is, maybe I do have a purpose here. Maybe I shouldn't be attempting to take my life early because I do serve a purpose here. So ultimately the lesson then becomes, well, maybe I'm stronger than I gave myself credit for. And I shouldn't have let all those things weigh me down to the point of attempting to take my life. So I thought that was very interesting and fascinating concerning the response from PMH Atwater on the concept of distressing near-death experiences. With that said, how are you feeling now today concerning, I know you said there were a lot of traumatic things that happened to you as a child. It got taken over the edge with an ex-boyfriend. How is your life outlook these days after your near-death experience?
Now I just focus on my kids, and I kind of haven't been real social as I used to be. I used to be kind of like a popular person, but I've kind of closed myself inside, and I don't really have as much friends as I used to have. And I still have to take antidepressants and anxiety meds because I still have flashbacks. I have a lot of flashbacks. So I do have to stay on medicine. But I've been feeling better now that I found like the Facebook group where other people are talking about the same things that happen to them, and then learning more about near-death experience, and then realizing that I'm not the only person and that there are some people that had them worse than me. So I just never found a person where I can sit there and talk to them about it and they won't think I'm crazy or judge me about it.
Well, I hope you found that person today at this particular time and hour. Interestingly, you say that you're taking care of your children, and that's also a message you seem to receive from your deceased grandmother during your near-death experience, correct? Did she say something about you have to be there for your children?
Yeah, she said something, and then Jesus. Before I woke back up in my body, he told me, before he gave me a hug, he said, go take care of the children.
Yes, I knew there was someone there that told you to go take care of the children, and it seems that you are completely serving that purpose right now.
That's all I know, is to take care of my kids. I haven't found out where I want to be in life. After that, I kind of went to different colleges, and I never set on one thing that I was going to do, and different jobs. And I've kind of just been really, really confused on life. But my main thing I do know I have to do is take care of my family.
Yes, and it seems that things are starting to snap right back into place for you, which I'm very glad to hear, by the way. Well, with that said, Nene, I want to thank you for coming on Real Spiritual Talk Radio and sharing with us your absolutely fascinating account.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, no problem at all. Ladies and gentlemen, Nene.